caught my gloves, my hand went up inside the rollers, and I was stuck then. I knew my arms were gone, because by then the second arm was caught, and I was there, and I knew I couldn't feel them no more. We decided with the 100 head of cattle, we needed a better way of moving hay around and straw. It was being very labor intensive, square bales, so we looked at round bales. And so we brought a baler in at the local dealer, and we looked at it. He brought it in that morning, went out to the field and started working with it, and we had lots of trouble with it all morning. The dealer was there, and we thought we were going on the right path because it was working to some degree. And so the dealers left before supper, and so did Dad. He left for home because he lived off the farm at that time. And so I decided after supper, I told Janet that I didn't tell her where, but I told Janet I was going out to just try this out a little bit more.
And I realized, gee, it's 10 o'clock, and Marie, I haven't heard from him, and he's not home. And I wasn't really panicking at that moment.
I remember right, there was a bunch of hay stuck up in the roller somehow. I went to give it a slap with I had gloves on. I think maybe after the second slap, it caught my gloves. My hand went up inside the rollers, and I was stuck then. So I knew for me to survive, I had to try to get out. So I had a knife ready. I had a pocket knife, and I was going to amputate my arm right there, but the knife fell. And so there I was without anything, but I had a rope. And back of the old cog chuck was a stop bar, stop lever. And so I tried to get the rope onto the bar, and after I don't know how many times of trying, the rope got caught up in the rollers. Of course, I had the end of the hand in my hand, and being a little weak, I didn't have time to let go, and it sucked my other arm up. So there I was, 2 arms stuck in the rollers, and 3 hours later, I was still there. And that's when Janet found me.
I remember running down through the ditch and up to the farm, to the place where he was on the land baling, and looking all around under the machine, at the bottom of things. And then I looked up, and I was amazed because he was over my head, tangled up in the baler, and I could see both his arms were mangled in there. And I found a lever, and I pulled it and hoped to God it wasn't the lever that was going to suck him right through the machine. So I drove as quickly as I could to the neighbors. The neighbors phoned neighbors, and they phoned the ambulance, and they phoned the RCMP, and soon everyone was sort of clustered out in the field, and I was on the roadside just pacing up and down. I wasn't in the field.
I knew my arms were gone, because by then the second arm was caught, and I was there, and I knew I couldn't feel them no more. So I said, just cut me down.
At one point on the side of the road, I kept thinking that they could perform surgery and maybe repair his arms somehow. But his dad came out and said, no, they're gone. They're gone right there, and they're gone right there. And that was, I mean, they were gone.
You know, how I was going to survive not having arms was somewhat going through my mind. You know, the other thing was we were newly married, so, you know, I didn't know what Janet was going to think of us all, and it was, you know, a very tough thing to think about. But I knew in my mind that I was going back farming, and that was, I think, kept me going.
There you go.
My wife was behind me 100%. My parents was behind me 100%. They came back to farming. You know, he spent another 10 years farming with me just to get me going. I'm going to push some snow, so we talk to you later.
All right, see you later. Bye.
You know, what's going to happen now, how I was going to survive within the farming world, you know, how was I going to adapt equipment, you know, after the rehab, because we went through the physical side, and we went through also the occupational side. So we had some training in that, but the occupational side, well, they didn't know anything about farming. there wasn't a group around to go to. There wasn't a support group. There was some family groups that you could, through the amputee programs, you could tap into, but nobody knew anything about farming. When I went to occupational, they wanted me to eat. That was far from my mind. I said, well, I can eat off the plate. I don't need arms for that. I can do it whatever's natural. But I said, I needed to get that tractor, that 100-horse tractor, I needed to get the crop in. You know, that was my concern. The biggest modification with this tractor was that the spindle. The spindle has to be clamped into the steering wheel so it doesn't come loose. I put my hook into the spindle, it can't come out, and I'm set for the power steering to be worked. The other thing that with this Kubota tractor, I make my clutch at the bottom, so I push in my foot, use my other foot to push on the ignition, and away we go. And once I got my set of arms, I was away. The mechanical side was very familiar to me, so you know, they didn't have to teach me a lot in that. But it took a while for me to learn how to accept things as you know, every year you learned a little more. You learn a little bit about yourself. The doctor that was looking after my prosthetics and stuff, he talked to another doctor who talked to somebody in Saskatoon over the Abilities Council, and it just snowballed from there. And then before I knew it, we were in at a meeting talking about a group, a support group.
I like to think that it was very much a joint effort to work through this and help develop the Handicap Farmers Program, as it was called then.
Everybody we talked to, especially for the wives, there was nothing, because they were going through, and I learned this after some time too. They didn't need the support. They were just pushed to the side and said, you know, just do your cooking and you know everything else. But they were going through some different times too, because now they had a husband with no arms. You know, it was different. Even to hug, we had to do that differently.
I helped Murray go to various meetings, go to various people, discussing it with them. And whenever I was given the opportunity to put my 2 cents in, I did, saying that there needs to be a family component, that it didn't just affect Murray, it affected multi-generations of his family.
As long as we can stick with the peer counseling, doing interviews, seeing kids at school that are, you know, that saying that we're out here, here we are, you know, that we're still surviving even at the ages that we're getting now. That was a good move for us. And if you get injured, you know, that is a possibility. And I think the result of it is that you can do whatever you want. I think even though you have no arms, there's still things out there for you to do. Thank you. We got into skiing. The local ski area got going, and that was part of my rehab too, was to be able to go back into sports and do some of the things that maybe we did and we didn't do before. I just can remember my first time meeting Doug Caswell, and he was a single arm. He wasn't a two-arm, but we still had the same thoughts and how we were going to do things. You know, how we were going to drive tractor, even though he had one arm, it was a hassle of reaching over to get the hydraulics. How was he going to do that? You know, and he had milk cows, so how was he going to milk cows with one arm? So we talked about all those things, and we just knew that it would take time, and you know, and somehow he would get through it all. That's all he needed, if I remember right. That's all we wanted to do to it, just understand that we could do it. Did somebody else do it? And he could see in front of him that, yeah, here was Murray. He was doing it. You know, he may be doing it a little different than me, but, you know, it is possible.